always knew there was something strange about the third-floor hallway in our old house. The creaking floorboards, the cold air no matter the season, but most of all, the locked door at the end of the hall. No key. No explanation. My parents simply called it the storage room and changed the subject every time I asked. But the night of my father's funeral, curiosity got the better of me. Everyone had left. The house was silent, soaked in grief. I climbed the stairs like I had 100 times before, but this time, I held something new in my hand, an old brass key I'd found in Dad's study drawer under a folder labeled "Not Yet." The moment the key turned in the lock, the air seemed to shift. Heavier. Like the room had been waiting for me. I pushed the door open, and what I saw inside didn't just shake me. It unraveled everything I thought I knew about my life. Dozens of old photographs of me, but not really me. Another child. Another family. A hidden crib. Medical files. DNA test results. And in the middle of the room was a woman in a rocking chair. Alive. Frail. Staring directly at me. "You're not supposed to be here," she whispered. I froze. Because that woman? She looked exactly like me. "You're not supposed to be here." Her voice was a ghost, barely audible but chillingly certain. I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at this fragile woman who looked like a version of me that had aged in isolation. Her skin was pale, her hair streaked with gray, and her eyes were mine. Before I could say anything, my mother's voice echoed in my mind, "Don't go near that room. It's just for storage, nothing interesting." Now I knew that was a lie. Let me take you back, because this didn't just start last night. I grew up in an upper-middle-class home in Vermont. From the outside, we looked picture perfect. Dad worked in finance, Mom was a stay-at-home parent, and I was their only child, Ivy. I had my own room, went to good schools, even had ballet lessons. But no matter how normal things appeared, I always felt like something was off. For starters, my parents were overly controlling. Not just protective, secretive. I wasn't allowed to have sleepovers, couldn't wander the house freely, and was never allowed on the third floor. Whenever I asked about it, my dad would tighten his jaw and say, "That floor's off limits for a reason." That reason was always vague. Mold, unsafe flooring, old wiring, every excuse but never a clear answer. Still, I was a good kid. I listened. Mostly. At 16, I found a photo album hidden behind a loose plank in my bedroom closet. It was worn and dusty, clearly forgotten, or hidden. Inside were baby pictures. Some of them were me, same dimple, same eyes. But in others, the child had a birthmark I didn't. Same room. Same crib. But not me. I asked my mom about it casually. She looked at the photo for half a second and said, "That was you before we had it removed." Then she grabbed the album and said she needed to store it somewhere safe. I never saw it again. Something inside me knew she was lying. In college, during a biology course, we did a DNA project for fun. Just curiosity. I submitted my saliva to a genealogy site like everyone else. When the results came back, it showed no match to either of my parents. Not even distant cousins. I confronted my dad about it. He laughed it off. Said those sites are never accurate and warned me not to share sensitive family information online again. I dropped it. But I never forgot. Years passed, but that door at the end of the hallway haunted me. I'd lie in bed at night and stare at the ceiling, imagining what might be behind it. I even dreamed about it, a little girl crying on the other side, or soft whispers I couldn't understand. Once, I thought I heard scratching from behind the door, but when I told my parents, they just laughed. Mice in the walls, they said. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was overthinking. Until Dad died. The funeral was quiet. My mom looked detached. Almost relieved. That night, as I cleaned out his study, I found the key, old, brass, heavy. It was under a folder labeled "Not Yet." Something told me the time was now. I took the key. Climbed the stairs I wasn't allowed to climb. Walked the creaky hallway I'd avoided my whole life. And opened the door. To her. A woman who looked like me. Alone in the shadows. Sitting in a rocking chair. You're not supposed to be here. Who are you? I whispered, though I already feared the answer. She didn't reply right away. Just stared at me with tired, hollow eyes, eyes that looked too much like mine. The air between us was thick with silence and disbelief. My heart pounded in my chest like a warning drum. The room was dimly lit by a small, dusty lamp in the corner. Everything in it was eerily neat, too neat. A small cot with a faded floral blanket, a desk with old books stacked precisely, a calendar frozen in 2009. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a room. It was a cell. And the locks? They were only on the inside. My name is Lila, she finally said. Lila, I repeated. The name felt foreign and familiar all at once. I'm your sister, she added. Your twin. The world tilted. I stumbled back, gripping the doorframe to steady myself. That's not possible. I'm an only child. She tilted her head, a bitter smile pulling at her chapped lips. That's what they told you. I felt sick. She pointed toward an old box under the desk. There are pictures in there. Before they locked me away. With trembling hands, I pulled it open. Inside were crumpled photographs, grainy, faded, but unmistakably real. Two little girls, identical in every way, holding birthday balloons. Another of us wearing matching dresses. Laughing. I couldn't breathe. Why would they do this to you? Lila shrugged, her voice distant. I started hearing voices when I was 6. Talking to shadows. They said I was sick. Dangerous. Our father called it a curse in the bloodline. I shook my head violently. But that's no reason to. To lock me in here, she finished for me, eyes flashing. They said it was for my safety. For yours. That I couldn't be trusted. Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes. How long? I haven't been outside since I was 10. They stopped celebrating my birthday after that. Eventually, they stopped saying my name. As Lila talked, memories began to flicker like broken film in my mind, things that never made sense until now. Why my parents always kept the attic locked. I heard crying at night but was told it was just the wind. Why my mother looked panicked whenever I asked about the locked room. Why I always felt like someone was missing. Lila wasn't just forgotten. She had been erased. Our parents had fabricated an entire narrative, molded me into the golden child and hidden away the flawed one, like she was something shameful. And I believed them. I could barely speak. They said you died when you were a baby. There was a picture of a tiny white coffin. I lit a candle for you every year on the day they said you passed. Lila flinched. They had a funeral for me? I nodded. She laughed softly, bitterly. Guess it's easier to mourn a lie than face the truth. I looked around the small room, bow rising in my throat. This is sick. This is evil. She stared at me. So now that you know, what are you going to do? That's when I noticed the red light blinking from the corner of the ceiling. A hidden camera. Oh my God, I whispered. They're watching us. Lila followed my gaze. They always do. I only leave this room when they decide it's safe. And only at night. I suddenly felt nauseous. Every word, every movement had likely been recorded. They're going to know I was here. She nodded. Which means they'll come up with something. To gaslight you. To silence you. Like they did to me. A heavy silence fell. Until she said, almost too softly to hear. You have to help me. Back in my room, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lila's face. Her eyes. Her isolation. Her stolen life. And then I began to wonder. How much of my life had been a lie? Was I ever truly loved? Or was I just the functional twin they could parade around? I looked through old photo albums. Cutouts. Birthday cards. There were odd inconsistencies, like photos that had clearly been edited. Places where someone had been cropped out. Lila. They had rewritten our entire family history. I knew I had to do something. But what? If I told anyone, who would believe me? My parents were upstanding citizens. Churchgoers. Educated. Respected. I decided to record Lila's story. Everything. Her voice. Her face. Her truth. The next day, I snuck back in with a hidden camera. I told her to speak her truth. She was hesitant, terrified, but eventually, she poured her soul out on camera. About the silence. The years of loneliness. The punishments. The abandonment. And the lies. It was raw. It was real. And it was finally out in the open. As I left her room that night, a hand grabbed my arm from the shadows. It was my father. His eyes weren't kind. They were cold. Calculating. We need to talk, he said. And suddenly, I knew. The real battle hadn't even begun yet. You went where you weren't supposed to go, my father said coldly. You saw what you weren't supposed to see. His hand gripped my wrist tightly, hard enough to leave a mark. I froze. The weight of his presence was suffocating. good-natured father the world knew. This was a different man. A man capable of hiding his own daughter from the world for over a decade. I just wanted answers, I whispered. I deserve to know the truth. He looked down at me, jaw clenched. You don't deserve anything you're not ready to carry. That girl, Lila, is sick. Dangerous. You think you're helping her, but you're risking everything we've built. I yanked my hand away. What you built is a house of lies. That night, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a cage, and I realized I was just as trapped as Lila, only my bars were invisible. At dinner, the silence was volcanic. Mom smiled like everything was normal. How was your day, sweetheart? I looked her straight in the eye. I saw Lila. The fork slipped from her hand and clattered onto the floor. Dad didn't flinch. She's my sister, I said. You lied to me. You buried her alive. Mom's hands trembled. We did what we had to do. You were thriving, she wasn't. She needed containment. I slammed my fists on the table. She needed help, not imprisonment. That night, I packed a bag. I was done pretending. I was done protecting people who thought secrets were safer than salvation. But before I could leave, I found Lila's door bolted shut again, from the outside this time. Heavy metal locks. Reinforced. They knew. And they weren't going to risk losing control. I banged on the door. Lila. It's me. No response. Then I heard it, soft crying. Choked sobs from the other side. I dropped to my knees. I'm going to fix this. I swear. My parents had crossed a line, and so had I. There was no going back now. The video I recorded, it was on my phone. But that wasn't enough. So I uploaded it to 3 cloud drives. Sent it to myself. Drafted emails to journalists. Activists. Local mental health organizations. All with a simple subject line. This is my twin sister. My parents locked her away. I hadn't sent them yet. But I would. First, I needed to get her out. At midnight, I heard footsteps outside my door. Then, a click. The lock turning. But it wasn't my door. It was hers. They were going back in. And I didn't know if she'd come out this time. You have to trust me, Lila. I'm not like them. The door creaked open just a few inches, and I saw her, trembling, barefoot, eyes wide like a deer who had never seen the sky. She was holding the lamp, her body hunched as if she was expecting pain, not help. Emily, she whispered. My heart broke at how strange my own name sounded in her mouth. A name she'd probably repeated in the dark for years, like a prayer she wasn't sure was real. I nodded. I'm here. And I'm not leaving without you. But we didn't have much time. Because I wasn't the only one who'd heard the door unlock. My mother's voice echoed down the hall. She's in there. Footsteps thundered toward us. I grabbed Lila's hand. Run. We tore through the hallway, past the portraits of a perfect family, their smiling faces now twisted memories of a lie. Lila was weak, but she pushed forward, clutching my hand like it was the only real thing she had left. We made it out the side entrance, through the garden gate, and into the woods that bordered our property. I'd hidden my car half a mile down the trail, just in case. Some part of me always knew this day would come. We drove in silence, Lila curled in the passenger seat like a ghost. "I don't know what's real anymore," she murmured. I reached over and squeezed her hand. "This is us. You're free now." That night, from a roadside motel room, I sent the emails. All of them. To every news outlet, mental health advocate, law firm I could find. I posted the video anonymously. Within hours, it exploded online. Family hides daughter for 12 years, twin sister exposes the truth. The media descended. Authorities came knocking. My parents were arrested within 48 hours, charged with unlawful confinement, medical negligence, and falsifying school and legal records. The mansion became a crime scene. My mother's polished smiles and rehearsed lies crumbled on camera. My father was silent, his eyes empty. They looked like strangers. The world wanted interviews. News anchors asked me what it felt like to lose everything. But I hadn't lost anything. I had finally found my sister. Lila was placed under psychological care with professionals who treated her like a human, not a problem. She was slow to trust, but every day she smiled more, laughed more, lived more. One morning, I found her painting birds on a canvas by the window. "I used to imagine this," she said. "Seeing light." Some people online called me brave. Others said I exaggerated. But none of them had lived in that house. None of them had heard a sister cry through walls for over a decade, not with their ears, but through silence that screamed. The truth wasn't pretty. But it was ours. And we weren't hiding it anymore. One evening, Lila asked, "Do you think they'll ever come for us?" I looked out the window, then back at her. Let them try. I wasn't prepared for what came next. The fallout was far more explosive than I'd imagined. After submitting everything, emails, financial documents, timestamps, screenshots, I waited. 3 days later, I got a call from a private number. It was Special Agent Brooks from the Financial Crimes Division. My voice trembled as I confirmed my identity, but he was calm. "We'd like to speak to you in person. You've uncovered something substantial." 2 weeks later, the FBI raided Vincent's firm. It made the local news: white-collar crimes, suspected fraud, and embezzlement. His house, cars, electronics, all seized. He looked like a deer in headlights in that mugshot, and for the first time in years, I smiled. Not out of spite, but out of relief. And what about my sister? Oh, Jessica didn't come out clean either. It turned out she'd been laundering money through her luxury spa and wellness retreats. The facade of the self-made wellness guru cracked when financial investigators traced multiple shell accounts back to her. They called it the sibling syndicate in the media. Our parents tried to go silent. They didn't visit Jessica in custody, nor Vincent. They moved out of their house to a quiet retirement town. Occasionally, my mother sends a "hope you're well" email that I ignore. I didn't go public with my story. I didn't need the attention. But I got my peace, my closure. I moved cities, and started working with a nonprofit helping people rebuild after family betrayal or abuse. The weight I carried for years? Gone. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see someone strong. Someone no longer defined by silence. I don't regret what I did. I reclaimed my story, and that made all the difference.